Good things are finally happening around Manchester United, with 5 players expected to return from injury after the international break. But it gets even more positive with Liverpool and Manchester City both dropping points this weekend. Arsenal defended really well to get a win over City. I kind of didn't want Arsenal to win, but I didn't want City to win either. Liverpool dropped points to Brighton, and Manchester United all of a sudden, after the season starting poorly, as you can see, we are in the top 10, but we are, look, 8 points off top, 6 points off City, 5 points off Liverpool, which, is catchable. We're not going to catch them, but, there's a bit of positivity there. There's a bit of positivity around United, and I want to start this video sort of on a positive note. Obviously, I know the Brentford side we beat was very poor, but I kind of want to speak about a few positive things, the players who return to injury, how the squad's going to look and more. But we also do have some other interesting news coming in. Erik ten Hag said some really interesting things post-match about why the win was so important for the dressing room, which I want to dive into. And the news about Jadon Sancho going to Juventus, but it would be a 60 million move, which is a bit of a surprise. But 60 million for Sancho, I think we're taking that, considering that's only a 12 million loss on a player that's been crap for 3 seasons. So we will get into that, as well as a story about United going for Ousmane Diamond, Antonio Silva, and more. But let's quickly actually get into the injury update first. We've got 2 different big injury boosts and updates coming in. And the first one that came out saying breaking Kobbie Mainoo, Reguilon and Ahmad are all expected to be available for selection after the international break. It was also said that Varane should be back and available after the break, and even Malacia is expected back within the next month. So that's 5 people expected back at Manchester United. And I think things are starting to look positive. Things are starting to look up. And Ten Hag said this post-game, and I'm going to get into this and why I think things are starting to look up. But Ten Hag said, this win, 2-1 win in the 90th minute, they give fuel to the dressing room. In football, it is eaten or get eaten. Too many times in the first half of the season, we got eaten by opponents who are more hungry. This can't be. Every player has to deliver. That in the second he is on the pitch. And Ten Hag makes a good point here. And the way I interpret this is, it's about, the dressing room. This win's going to fuel the dressing room. It's to eat or be eaten. And we're getting eaten up by oppositions because they have more desire, more belief, more confidence. They work harder than us. But, having that win, going into the dressing room with a win on us, going into the international break with a win behind our back, I think that's going to give us that confidence to kind of feed on, even though it was a poor Brentford side that we should be anyway. I think it's probably going to give us that confidence to kind of feed on and potentially, hopefully, give a bit of a mentality boost to help turn the season around. But why I wanted to be positive and what I wanted to speak about before I even got into the news and a few comments Ten Hag has made and more, is that this is likely to be our options post-international break. And I think that it's looking somewhat positive, and I mean, I could have added Amrabat and Mainoo to that role behind Mount. And look, I don't think this is our strongest starting 11, but this is what I think Ten Hag views as our strongest starting 11. But as you can see, with Reguilon and Malacia coming back, we've got left-back options. Varane should be back with Maguire, who's been decent. Evans been decent. Lindelof's been decent. Look, the defence isn't great, but I think having Reguilon and Malacia come back in will help in terms of balance. I think Delo has been fine. But I also look at it and go, you know what? The midfield's decent. Casemiro's dropped off in form. Erik ten Hag made a few comments on that. I think Casemiro will go back to his best, but we've got Mainoo coming back that can do that role, and we've got Amrabat, who we saw versus Brentford, that can do that role. Amrabat in that second half was unbelievable. In the Mount role, there's Mejbri and Eriksen could do that role. Even Scott McTominay and Donny van de Beek could provide some value. I think Mejbri could be an important player, and even Amrabat and Mainoo can do that role. And then in Bruno's role, you've got Mount and Eriksen that can do that. Donny can do that. I forgot to add to the list. And you've got someone like Dan Gore, who might be quite interesting and important. We've got Antony back, which I think will be beneficial. I'm not the biggest fan of Antony in terms of an individual. I don't think he's great with the ball, and I don't think he's been good enough. But I think the team always plays better when Antony plays. That's what I've always said on Antony. We seem to be a better team when Antony's on the pitch because the dynamic he gives us, his ability to want to get on the ball, track back. We just play as a better team. And then you've got Amad Diallo coming in, who I think could work really well to Ten Hag, with him being a left-footed right winger, which is what Ten Hag likes. And then we've obviously got Pulisic as a hard worker. Højlund up top with Martial, and both Højlund and Martial have been impressive. Rashford and Garnacho on the left wing, who Rashford hasn't been at his best and needs to track back and stuff, but there's always Garnacho there as a good option. And I do think, this squad is looking a lot better. I think having those 4 or 5 key players come back from injuries, and obviously having players like Amrabat back and Højlund back, and even Antony back has been quite beneficial, even Mason Mount back as well. So the only real missing injury is kind of Lisandro Martinez going forward post-international break, and of course Luke Shaw. But I do think United are looking in a much better position. So I wanted to be positive and start off this kind of video talking about actually, you know what, our rivals have dropped points. We've got a lot of players coming back from injury. We got that big win, and I think that win, you know, yes, we should have won that game. Yes, it wasn't pretty, but I think the win might give us a mentality boost. And I think this team needs confidence. It needs belief. And look, I wouldn't be surprised if we came back and lost to Sheffield United. You can't rule anything out with these Man United players, but I think it's definitely a really, really important result to show us belief. You can turn it around. It's the 90th minute, you're losing and you win 2-1. You know, for me, that's exactly what I wanted. And Erik ten Hag was asked a few questions about the performance post-game, and he was saying, you know, is that the best ever substitute you've made? We're going to McTominay. And Erik ten Hag said, no, look, it's not about me. I don't know. It's about the team performance. And the game sums up our season. He said, everything's against us, but we have to create our own luck. And that's what we did today. And Erik ten Hag said, look, we finally got the luck. Erik ten Hag said post-match, he said that Scott McTominay was fabulous. When you come in the end of the game and you bring that mindset and that energy and that confidence, he fought every meter for every ball, he'll be rewarded. And ten Hag makes a big point about how McTominay came on with confidence, with the right mindset and the right energy to fight and fight and fight for every ball, you know, give 100%. And I think that's something that we've been lacking. I think if you look at a lot of the goals we're conceding, it's from us not tracking back, not running enough off the ball, not covering the opposition, not doing the press, looping concentration. We're not running as much off the ball. Athleticism hasn't been as good. And ten Hag said that McTominay was a great sub because he had the right mindset, energy, and confidence. And I think that's everything we've been lacking. We've been lacking the energy. I don't think the players have been in the right mindset, and I don't think they've had the right confidence. But if we can bring that to the team post-international break with players returning from injury, and we should beat Sheffield United, maybe we can start to turn around the season. Because I do trust ten Hag. You look at Ajax right now. Ajax is a complete mess without ten Hag. I do trust ten Hag. I do think he's a good manager, and I do think hopefully things can be turned around as well. And I'm a big fan of obviously Erik, and hopefully he will turn it around. Erik ten Hag was then asked about the game and what he said to the players, and he just said, I told them not to give up. We were losing, but the conviction was still there. They also showed patience and calm. They kept pushing and we had opportunities. And Erik ten Hag just said, he kept saying to them, don't give up, we're losing, but we're going to have opportunities if you stay patient and calm. And I don't know if we 100% did that until the end when Amrabat sort of came into the midfield and it was a lot more beneficial. But I think something we've been struggling is we go 1-0 down and it be in the 20th minute, and all of a sudden we change the way we were playing for the opening 20 minutes, which was good against Brighton, Crystal Palace, and of course Bayern. We were good in those first 20 minutes against those three sides, and then we go a goal behind and we start changing the way we play, doing long balls over the top, doing this, doing that. And because we're changing the way we play, I think we look less of a threat. I don't know if we're going to score or not. We can't get control. And Erik ten Hag said to the team, you know, don't give up when we're losing, because that's something we've done a lot. But he said, you know, we've got to play with that conviction, that patience, that calmness. And I think, you know, we kind of did that right towards the end. In those final sort of 10-ish minutes, we kept the ball better, which was so important. But I do want to dive into some of the transfer news, some of the news going about. There's reports that United are looking at Ousmane Dembélé, and I think he'd be a fantastic centre-back for United, but he's very young, so I'm a bit sceptical on it. The way I see it is if we could get Todibo in January and get either one of Antonio Silva or Ousmane Dembélé in summer, that would be brilliant. I think Antonio Silva just pips Dembélé for me just because he's got a little bit more experience. But I think Dembélé, you know, he could be better than Antonio Silva, but he's just so new, he's so raw, but he's unbelievable on the ball. There's two fantastic players in the Portuguese league in Dembélé and Antonio Silva, and I hope we at least snap up one of them. And we've been linked to both of them heavily. We know that centre-back is going to be the priority going into next summer, but I also would like to see if we could do something for Todibo again in January. I think we need two centre-backs. Ten Hag's made it clear he needs two centre-backs, and hopefully Manchester United do it, especially if we're going to get money for Jadon Sancho. There's actually reports coming in that we could get as much as 60 million for Jadon Sancho. Now, Jadon Sancho, for me, with everything going on, I would probably take 40 million and above for him. But I guess because Kai Havertz went for that kind of money, you kind of go, oh, could maybe Sancho go for that kind of money? And I've just realised I've shared the wrong thing with you. But it was said, Justin, Juventus want to sign Sancho on loan in January with the view of turning it into a 60 million permanent move next summer. Now, this has come from The Sun, which isn't the most reliable source, but a few good sources have come out and linked Jadon Sancho to Borussia Dortmund. And it said that Sancho, not Borussia Dortmund, this links Sancho to Juventus now. And a few sources said Sancho doesn't want to return to Dortmund. He'd rather rebuild his career at Juventus. So there are reports coming out about Sancho to Juventus from many sources. This one's obviously from The Sun, which is saying that Juventus would be interested in paying up to 60 million for Sancho. And with the loan in January and 60 million in the summer. I'd ideally see if we could get 60 million out of them in January, because then we'd have the money to invest in a centre-back. We'd probably have the money to get Todibo and Marcos Leonardo if we could get 60 million for Sancho in January. But at the end of the day, I still don't see us getting 60 million for January. It is the sun. I would say give a pinch of salt, but reports are coming out that Juventus are interested in Jadon Sancho. United could get 60 million for the player. And we do know right now United are heavily looking in Brazil at young talents that they might look to replace Sancho with. We know that going into next summer, they will want a right winger if Antony's form does not continue. But we know that United's focus right now is on centre-back signings, with Ten Hag trying to push for one in December because of injuries, which could depend on which could depend on injuries, but could also depend on finance, depending on who the owners are, depending on, of course, if Sancho is here or not. I'd like to sell Sancho in January, because even if the Glazers are still here, it at least gives us an option to go and buy someone in January. But it was been pretty much obvious that Sancho was going to leave the club. But if we can get 60 million, that is exactly what we need. Anyway, in all honesty, I know Jadon Sancho will leave on January. I know he'll leave on loan in January, and then with the permanent move in the summer. But I just think because it's Man United, we won't get anywhere near 60 million for him. I think because of what he did at Dortmund, his potential, there's a chance you can get 60 million for him. You know, Arsenal paid 65 million for Havertz, but Man United are so bad at selling that. Although I'd be shocked if we do get a 60 million sale, and I think that would be really good business from United. I do see him going for 40 million just because of attitude issues. People know that United will be desperate to offload him. He's on a ridiculous wage, and United are bad at selling on top of that. But it looks like Juventus are getting a bit serious about Sancho with a loan, then potentially an option to buy. Hopefully United do go and do business in January. But again, I've said it, I think it depends on sales and ownership. I don't think we'd get someone like Antonio Silva or Demonde in January, who are two brilliant centre-backs who are unreal on the ball, just because I think they'd be a bit more expensive. And I will say, while I like Demonde, I do think he lacks that experience, and I think Antonio Silva also lacks that experience. But I think Antonio Silva's got a bit more experience, so he pips it for me. But I think Demonde has potential to be even better on the ball as a centre-back wise. But I'd like to see United get a young attacker in January and a centre-back in January, but I'm not sure if we will. But there is a few rumours about us in the centre-back market as well. But let me know your thoughts on Jadon Sancho. Do you think we could get 60 million for him? And if we do get 60 million, will you take that? I'd absolutely take 60 million for Sancho myself. Let me know your thoughts on Ten Hag's comments. Do you think we could have maybe hit a turning point in the season where we can be a bit more positive? This was basically a show to try and be more positive, dive into Ten Hag's ideas, and dive into news on Sancho leaving. Thank you for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are. Smash a like, smash a subscribe. See you next time. Bye.